Pretty good at that usually.
USD 49 Board of Education, Monday, February 26th. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Order of the agenda, I want to move the best of the best awards up first, and then followed by the report of the superintendent. Everything else will stay the same.
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Moving into our first item, which is the best of the best nominations. The best of the best are chosen by their peers, and these are people that go above and beyond every day in their day-to-day activities. Our first best of the best award winner as our student this month is Gavin Jacobson, and he was nominated by Sue Rouse. And I believe Sue is here to say just a bit about him.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. For me, Gavin is the best of the best. It makes my day to see Gavin every day in the hallway with a wave and a smile and a hi, Mrs. Rouse. I met Gavin last year when I was working as a job coach. He was never one of my students, but he always remembered my name. He always waved. He always smiled. Whenever I saw Gavin, I knew I could count on that smile to pick me up and keep me going. I loved it when he said, "Hey, Rouse." Last January, I moved into the office, and I got to know a lot more students then. I speak to them in the hallway, and I call them by name, but most of them kind of look the other way like they're embarrassed to see me talking to them. I had one kid actually want to know how I knew his name. It was because he kept losing things, and he had to come to the office to claim them. But it never failed that Gavin always recognized me, always called me by name, and always said, "Hi." Mrs. Dinkel told me that when I came down to the cafeteria to eat Thanksgiving lunch, Gavin was really excited to see me. You could see him standing up, waving at me. As I walked by, I saw him, I saw his smile, I heard him call my name, and it just really made me thankful to be there and to be with such a fun student like Gavin. Mrs. Dinkel and Mrs. Odie kind of call me his girlfriend because they know that whenever Gavin sees me, he's going to wave and call my name. And it makes a good day even better when I see Gavin in the hallway. That's why Gavin is the best of the best.
Gavin has just a bit of a thank you speech to share with all of you.
Hi, my name is Gavin. Thank you all for this special award. Thanks to my family. I love them. Some of my favorite activities are playing basketball and music and dancing. I like to go to school and have many friends. Go Hayes High.
All right, thank you, Gavin. All right, we're going to go around.
Okay, and our staff Best of the Best award nominee this month is Sandra Hickert. And Sandra was nominated by Beth Ziegler, and I believe Carrie Peterson is going to be here to kind of read the nomination, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I have to admit that Beth is the one who wrote down all these wonderful things about Sandra, although every one of them are true. First of all, we sincerely thank you for selecting Sandra Hickert, our teacher, as February's Best of the Best. She's best of the best every day. Regularly, we have students of ours who are dealing with things such as eviction or simply they don't have any food to eat in their homes. There are indeed many heart-rending plights a fair number of our students are up against. What they find in Sandra is a very smart woman who can connect them to community resources, and then, once they're stable, she is able to fire up or refire an indignance in them against the insidiousness of giving up pressures. One of the things that I regularly see her do is utilize words of affirmation with our students. And I think that's just a really fabulous thing. She's a one-of-a-kind servant in terms of working with and often counseling the population we have. Our students come in with many, many challenges. Not only does she calmly give them some rays of hope for their current predicaments, and there are a myriad of family and student challenges, She follows through and helps them elevate up from the dilemma and then navigate to post-secondary enrollment and eventually success. Sandra's comfortable serving as a liaison between our young people and adults and the community organizations set up to help them. This is something she does on a daily basis. If the role the Learning Center has is to help students earn credits and get wiser, and find meaningful internships and employment, and or go on to post-secondary credits, Sandra is the poster teacher for Learning Centers and high school teachers everywhere. Sandra makes sure our Learning Center students are well positioned with confidence and that they are embraced, supported, and boosted up for all of the good things in life. She is definitely the best of the best. We appreciate you.
I take just a very brief moment to say to USD 489 Board of Education, thank you for valuing alternative education. Thank you for ensuring that there aren't children left behind. You can probably blame my parents who 54 years ago gave me a name that means helper of mankind. And then a husband who has a servant's heart and has stood by me every step of the way. And last but not least, my 3 children who have never gone on a family trip that didn't involve a student stop somewhere along I-70, whether to deliver a laptop, to proctor a final exam, or to retrieve a laptop. They know there's no changing mom. This is what I do, and I thank you for letting me do it.
Congratulations again to Gavin and Sandra, and thanks again to our sponsors, I think this much, which were Gella's and McDonald's. So. All right, moving on to the next item, which will be the report of the superintendent, and I will turn it over to John.
On February 12th, early morning, the Hayes Police came to Hayes High to follow up on a possible threat towards the school. The student who was identified as making the threat was taken out of class in question. The front end of the investigation confirmed the threat, and the source of the threat was contained. From the onset, the boy's family was very supportive and cooperative. The situation quickly turned into a child in need of care case. The police were continuing their investigation to gather any details. Other students were questioned during that process. If I would have sent a message to parents and community on Monday or Tuesday, it would have been informative in nature and not a warning. Wednesday's Florida tragedy affected the dynamics of our situation. The police's earlier search for details turned into a process of tracking down rumors. I suspect some of those rumors spawned from the earlier questioning of students. Even on February 21st at the Council of Superintendents in Topeka, many superintendents described rumors of threats that developed in their communities since February 14th. I'm sure it was amplified for Hayes since we had an actual threat. The school's attorney, building administration, and I met Thursday to discuss how we should proceed with the disciplinary process as the child in need of care case was being defined. On Friday the 16th, a decision was made for the chief of police, county attorney, and superintendent of schools to meet and talk on how to proceed. The meeting occurred on Saturday morning. A statement was agreed upon and released to the media by the county attorney. Complicating the situation was the sightings of the student in the community. He was in state custody still in Hayes, waiting for placement. The Hayes Police Department, judicial representatives, and building administration did an exceptional job throughout the process. It is I who could have limited the heightened fear by sending out a simple informative note on Monday or Tuesday. Florida's tragic event on Wednesday may still have amplified local concern, but at least no one would have felt that the threat in Hayes was not being addressed. I am sorry for the fear and anxiety that developed due to this, and I am sorry that the Board of Education was subject to great negativity when they had nothing to do with it other than trusting in my judgment and performance. It is important for all to know that we do have an organized crisis committee that meets 3 times a year. The committee members include representatives from the Fire and Police Department. Homeland Security regularly attends. We have secretaries, principals, custodians, and food service who also attend the meetings. The crisis plan was recently updated, and a summary sheet of the plan is in print form on all the teachers' desks. 2 representatives from Hayes Public and Hayes Private Schools returned last week from a week-long training in Prepare, which is a program designed to organize the best strategy in dealing with any crisis. All buildings regularly have their fire and tornado drills. An item discussed during one of our past crisis meetings was that there is not a typical situation. A crisis situation is very complex, and a single factor may change the process in which we act. Because of this, we conduct a variety of drills, including active shooter. Buildings have gone to only the front doors being unlocked throughout the school day. Actually, one elementary and the middle school has the front doors locked as well. There are plans on having a buzz-in system for all school buildings. The transition might be possible this summer. Last year, work went into having crisis bags for all classrooms. Gradually, locks are being switched out throughout the district. Perhaps the more important activities deal with training and helping students. A new at-risk program designed to increase graduation rate is being considered for next year. Anti-bullying activities have been introduced. A social worker was added to our staff last year, and an added counselor is planned for this coming year. Westside Alternative School was created 25 years ago, and there have been recent discussions on how to expand the program. Lack of space is one of the key obstacles. Schools in Ellis County have been given an opportunity from High Plains Mental Health to have 30 school employees trained in mental health first aid. Focus is being placed on connecting every student to their school by participation in sports, clubs, or co-curricular activities. Engaged students are healthier students. It is a constant process to make changes so as to provide greater safety for our children. I do wish that I could replay that week. And I'm telling the board and the audience and anybody on TV as well at this time. Going back to that particular time, the piece that was very scary was just the police coming to the school and wanting to follow up on a lead that there was a threat. The comforting part was within 30 minutes to an hour, the threat was contained. The source of it was actually in custody and has been since that time. There are things that happened that week that really made me question the process as to how to and when to inform the public. And I will admit, looking at it at this point, no matter what the different pieces were through that week, yeah, I'd love to replay it and have the simplest of note would have made a difference perhaps on Monday or Tuesday. Just to end up saying there was a threat, it's been contained, the police were involved from the beginning. That would have helped. But I must say, and I said it in this, and I'll say it again and again, the police force was amazing in how they handled it. The judicial system was fantastic. The building administration worked with them throughout that week in trying to cooperate and do what was needed. The piece that missed was a note that went out to public, and that would have been mine. I am the public relations person for the school district. So I wish to end up sharing that. to the public as well as to the Board of Education. There has been pieces, the other piece as far as items that I shared as far as crisis committee and that, every one of those items was in place prior to the happening of that week. Actually, the training was that week for those two individuals. We have the crisis committee was decided last year that it was no longer going to be just the public schools crisis committee. It is the private schools and public schools. They went together last year. The reasoning for that was we used the same police force, we used the same fire department, we used all the support groups ends up being the same, so we need to end up, and therefore we have representation from all schools at these committees meetings. We have more we wish to do. We've identified that. Some of it is tied to money, some of it is tied to training, but I do believe that we're in the process of learning and trying to end up making the very best of it, and I promise to the board and to the public to as well do a better job as well as we go into this. Questions from the board?
I guess I'd like to make a little statement on this as well. It's obviously been a trying week or week and a half here for everyone. Confusion, fear, everything adding to this. The one thing I think everybody will agree upon is communication is key when a situation like this happens. Now or in the future, doesn't make any difference. I, like many of you, have and still have many questions about everything that happened, how it all went down. I don't currently have a student out at Hayes High, but I can tell you and assure you, I completely understand the frustration, concerns, and you all have every right to be upset. I guess saying that, I guess I'd like to address everyone involved and it wasn't just, I ran into people at the game that Friday. I had numerous phone calls, emails, people at the grocery store, everyone. And I guess the biggest thing I want to start off is I just want to simply say, I'm sorry. We screwed up. And while I applaud John for explaining things and shouldering the blame, this was by no means just John. We as a district failed the community on many levels, period. There are no excuses. I think we failed our students, our staff, our parents, and I want to personally apologize if we gave anybody any reason to doubt or give any reason to lose faith in the district or that trust. Trust is a hard thing to get. It's super easy to lose, but it's tough to rebuild that trust, and I think we have a road ahead of us to do that. I know that the district can do a much better job in communicating as far as what went on, what happened, and whether it was the phone calls to the high school that I know people made, or the rumors that started because of the lack of communication. While I can't do anything to change anything that happened, what I can do is promise you one thing, that things are going to be handled differently in the future. As John said, I know we have things in place. I know we will be having several more meetings on that, setting things down, getting things figured out. We need to do everything in our power, God forbid something like this happens again, to make sure that we're ready, to make sure that, for lack of a better term, that this runs smoothly, that we can do everything that we can to let people know right away. Like John said, even if it's simply just a simple statement of saying, hey, this is what happened, we're getting more information. As we know more, we'll let you know more. But, something as simple as that would have stopped a lot of the rumors and everything else that happened, which then in turn grew, caused everybody all kinds of additional fear and unneeded angst and everything else that didn't need to be there. Not to say or to say that this was not a serious incident, but as John said, it was contained fairly quickly, so there at the end of the day, there ended up not being really a danger to the students there, but just that little bit of communication there could have solved a lot of these problems. I also know with 100% certainty that nobody, whether it be the people at the high school, the administration, or anybody, in our district would do anything intentionally to ever put our students in harm's way. Obviously, we dropped the ball here. There was some miscommunication and things like that. And like I said, you're not going to hear any excuses from me. We screwed up as a district. I know we can do better, and I know as a community, you know we can do better. Like I said before, we have a big job ahead of us, so I ask that you work with us. We're going to go through, like I said, I hope we'll be putting some additional teams together and stuff like that. I know we've working with the police department, the different entities and stuff like that. Anything we can do to, again, make this a better way to handle things going forward should something like this ever happen again. So like I said, at the end of the day, I just wanted to personally apologize to the community that we as a district failed you. It will not happen again. So. I don't know if anybody has anything else. They're welcome to chime in.
I would only share that at that Council of Superintendents meeting, even at that level, we had about 60 superintendents present this last week, and even there they had presented a document that they wish for us to then meet with our building principals. And this, of course, is because of the incident in Florida. It ends up being, they want us to go over it, identify different things to check again in your districts, and so across the state there is work that's being done in trying to improve their communication and process in dealing with crisis.
Very good. Anybody have anything else to add? Okay. John, do you want to finish do you have more in your superintendent's report?
That's all.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is audience participation.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. For the record, Eber Phelps, State Representative from Hayes. And I just wanted to stop by tonight and give you a little bit of an update where we're at in the legislative session, touch a little bit on the whole school finance issue that's going on in our state as a result of the Gannon versus State of Kansas lawsuit. First of all, we're not in session since Thursday. We adjourned Thursday evening. What we've done is reach the procedural halfway point of the session, and what that means is bills that originated in the House will go over to the Senate, and likewise bills that originated in the Senate will come over to the House. So it was a pretty busy week there, the last, up until Friday, I guess it was. And so a number of bills went over. There's some bills that are in exempt committees, all your budget bills, tax bills, and so forth. They either remain in the House Appropriations Committee or the Federal and State Committee or the Tax Committee, and likewise in the Senate, they'd be in Ways and Means, Federal, State, and also their Tax Committee. What I wanted to, though, talk about is that I try to paint a little bit rosier picture about our finances here in the state going into this session compared to last year. If you recall, last year we began the session with a $900 million hole in the budget, which we had to fix, and we did that by repealing the 2012 tax plan. This year we come in a little bit different position as far as our state finances. If you recall, we started seeing increased revenues starting back in July and all the way to December reporting period, where we were above the estimates each of those months. As a matter of fact, at this point from July to December, we're $352 million ahead of where we were a year ago. And there's some news come down from the federal level, with the recent tax bill that the federal government passed, which made changes in our individual income tax filing as well as corporate. We're going to come up with probably an additional $138 million for 2019. And the year after that, they're figuring about $180 million, and I think it even goes up beyond that in the third year out. So my point that I bring that, those revenues up is the fact that under the or as a result of the Gannon versus State of Kansas lawsuit, we have to have a plan for school finance ready by April 31st. Now, obviously, we need to get something like that done considerably ahead of that. There are those of us in the legislature who are just really getting frustrated with the process thus far, especially in light of last year where there was such a collaborative effort and a real desire on the part of the legislature, both the House and the Senate, to kind of get things back on track. Not trying to throw anybody under the bus or anything, but there was a task force on school finance put together, and up till now about all they've had is kind of informational hearings, and there's really no substantial talk about any kind of funding. I tend to look at, our revenues and what I think the Supreme Court might accept. And so you hear that figure thrown out there about $600 million additional funding over a 3-year period. And I believe that right now we're in position to do that. As I mentioned, the revenues that have increased since August, or July I should say, give us a substantial little bit of footing, coupled with the $96 million, I believe it is, that was already budgeted for 2019. So as far as, doing a $200 million a year type of scenario, we're there for 2019. And also, when you take into consideration just the growth that's probably going to take place, we probably, more than likely will be able to do a $600 million, plan to give to the Supreme Court. Now, is that enough? I think it's a good start, and I think it's close to maybe what they might be thinking. They never really have come out with an actual dollar figure. But my point is that I think I was really kind of disappointed that we don't have anything out there already. With that task force type committee meeting prior to the session, and then just seeing these revenue estimates coming in, or I should say revenue dollars coming in, it seems to me that we could have had something, prepared. So what happened here along the way is the leadership, meaning the President of the Senate and the Speaker, chose to not focus on funding, but to go after the Supreme Court. And as you know, that didn't work out too well. And then of all people, they decided to go after Dale Dennis and try to create, discredit him. And in my opinion, anybody that's had anything to do with education for the last 50 years will know that Dale Dennis is one of the most honorable and respected people in Topeka, and also, in my opinion, probably one of the foremost authorities on school finance. I talk to him regularly, and we talk about, possibility of what we could have done by now, and he agrees wholeheartedly that we could have actually had a plan out there. At least, I'd just soon get that to the Supreme Court as early as possible. That way, if they had a chance to look that over, we'd at least have some of the session left, if we've got to do something else. I, for one, don't want to go back to a special session. So if we come in there with something short of $600 million, I believe that you'll see the Kansas legislature have to convene in June or July. And that just, I've been through one of those before, and I don't really care to do that again. So we do have a considerable amount of money to deal with, and I think we can do the $600 million. I think that there'll be money left over where we can pay back the Board of Regents the $24 million so they can put that back into higher education. So that's partially opinion, but also is fact-based. The money is there. You can look at the revenues that have come in. I was going to ask the superintendent, did you get to get the presentation from the group that's doing the study? They did give a presentation to school superintendents on Saturday. I go back, historically go back to, I think it was 2004 when the legislature commissioned the Augenblick and Meyer study. They did that in 2004, and I think they did a follow-up in 2007. But in 2004, not only did you have the Augenblick and Meyer study, studying our school finance formula as well as the funding, but you also had a random study done by the Department of Education, And you also had a study done by the Division of Post Audit. And not surprising to me or anybody, they all three came up with the same result, that our funding levels were below what they needed to be. So here we get into this year, and I'm thinking there should be a sense of urgency here, because we're now facing a court decree. So another study was commissioned by the leadership in the House and Senate, and they commissioned Dr. Lori L. Taylor. She's from Texas A&M University, and Jason Willis, he's the Director of Strategy and Performance at West Ed Consulting Group. I sat through their presentation on Friday, which really didn't have anything of substance as far as any specifics. They were mainly outlining what process they were using to study. And what their study is doing, it's a cost study on the way we're funding education, K-12 education, state of Kansas. They're supposed to have a final report due March 15th. And it appeared to me that either that report's already done and they just came in there Friday to kind of give a sort of an update, but it really wasn't a real, anything new to anybody that's followed education for any length of time. It was kind of a school funding 101. And interestingly enough, the Dr. Taylor expounded on, her experience, with school finance, and that she had done a similar study on cost effectiveness here in the state of, or did one in Texas like she's doing in the state of Kansas. And when they presented their funding formula in Texas to their Supreme Court, the Texas court said this. They said the Taylor study overemphasizes small district behavior and understates the urban influence on cost relations. Stated another way, the decision not to pupil weight likely explains the Taylor study finding of lower costs in large districts. So we looked at, and I don't have the figure right in front of me, how much, the state wanted to, or how much they were trying to raise there in the state of Texas, and then what her study came back in. And it was like millions under what they had suggested. And so I've come to the conclusion that what they're going to come in here and say is that, there's no correlation between outcomes and funding. And I think that they talk too much about ELL students and disadvantaged students, and I think they're going to suggest that less money goes into that because it's costing the districts too much. And so it was kind of a lot of eye-rolling going on during their presentation. I do have an extra copy which I'll give to the superintendent here that he can share with board members. But I believe that in the House, there is the will, in the House of Representatives, there's a will to look at what I was just talking about, existing monies, come up with a 3-year funding plan, whether it's $600 million or a little bit more than that, but to get something on the table so that we get an early enough notice whether it's going to be sufficient, and it's going to be a little tougher sell in the Senate. I believe that what they did, they kind of led the way on getting this study done, and it's a $200,000, I believe, study, and I think they found somebody that they could pay $200,000 to come in and say, we're spending too much money. And I don't want to add any more to your stressful week by saying something like that, but at some point, the legislature, I think, is going to get a little fed up with this kind of dragging the feet routine that's going on right now. If I may add one more thing here, I noticed you have a pretty good sized agenda here, but in light of the discussions you just had before I came up here, there was a bill introduced to add, NRA gun safety courses for school districts to opt into or voluntarily teach, gun safety courses. It was pulled off the table, if you will, because it was based on an NRA program that wasn't fact-based and proven, and so they want to pull that off and add some other language in there that might find some other safety courses that are proven. And also, in light of the incident in Florida, they really want to come out with a more comprehensive type thing than just some bill that says you can teach safety courses. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer those. If not, thank you for letting me come here, and as I mentioned, I'll give this to the school superintendent and hopefully come back with some better news next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other audience participation? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item, which is communications from other organizations. And do we have anything on the early childhood connection stuff, John?
They'll be shared with the
Okay.
grant later in the
Okay, very good.
agenda.
Next item on the agenda then is school spotlights.
Very pleased to have Lori Hurdle here. Thank you for being here. We wish to end up extending our appreciation to her for her generous donation of $500, as well as the collection of hundreds of books for the elementary schools. A donation was given in memory of Anna Hurdle, Lori's daughter, who unexpectedly passed away on February 11th, 2010, at the age of 17. We're proud to accept these generous donations in Anna's honor. Thank you. Do you wish to share anything, Lori?
I know several people here and there were my daughter who had passed away. She was full of energy, very motivated person, and she gave me some good education and learning. And one of those things is to reach out to other people and help them in as much as what I possibly can. I gave the books and everything to you all in her memory because I want to keep her memory alive. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Also wish to end up thanking the Hayes Optimist Club. They contributed to the library reading 2018 at the Hayes Middle School. See, the Optimist Club used to be the ones that purchased the dictionaries every year, and they gave them to the sixth graders in Ellis County. They did that for the last 30-some years. This year, they contributed to $800 to the library reading 2018, and the donation will be used to purchase books for Hayes Middle School Library. We wish to extend the gratitude to Hayes Optimist Club for continued support of students in Ellis County. Dictionaries are still very important. It's just that the book form becomes, I'm sorry, a bit obsolete, and that's the reason why they kind of changed their focus at this point. So, Craig, you want to share?
I do. I can't resist. I've worked with the Optimist Club every year since I've been here over the 20-some years, and Mr. Gary Wentling and a lot of the different people that are there every year. And we have had stories of the sixth graders getting the dictionaries and kids coming back and say, hey, I still have mine going through high school. Even though I have my computer, I still need a paper dictionary. But as we moved through with technology, we just felt like overall with the classroom libraries right now, and the Optimist gave us this opportunity. So this has been a group that has helped the middle school every year for the last 20-some years since I've been there, and I just wanted to publicly thank them.
Thank you, Craig. Also have the exciting news that we had high school swimmers that qualified for state competition. There were several that qualified. We ended up swimming and diving meet this month. Sophomore Isaac Smith qualified for state in both the 50-yard freestyle and the 100-yard butterfly. The 200-yard freestyle team also qualified for state. The team consists of senior Blake Gearing, juniors Brett Bowles and Scout Perryman. and sophomore Isaac Smith. The Indian swimming team is coached by Faith Schindler. Hayes High students on mission. We ended up having 3 students from Hayes High travel to Genaves. I don't know how to pronounce it. Is that right? Genaves? In Haiti in January to volunteer at Coralou Orphanage. While in Haiti, junior Josh Norris, freshman Kelby Rice, and senior Carrie Dinkle were able to make basketball goals. They painted the basketball court. They hosted a basketball skills. Let's see. Oh, I lost my place. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. Able to, they had a camp for the children, and 3 students were also able to help a former Hayes family who moved to Genaves to work at Coralou Orphanage. This was the first time any of the students traveled out of the country. We ended up did the same thing. I've got it here. I'm really good at this today. Yeah, exactly. We had students who successfully auditioned for the All-State Honor Choir. Have a nice list. We have Eric Adams, Shelby Knoll, Aaron Muirhead, Ryan Will, Brett Bowles, Nathan Leiker, Levi Smith, Adam Klossmeyer, Hannah McGuire, and Kate Swain. And these students all perform at Century 2 in Wichita on February 23rd. So did a wonderful job. Let's see. Citizenship Day is celebrated by Hayes Middle School 7th graders. 7th graders at Hayes Middle School celebrated Citizenship Day at the 12th Street Auditorium last week. Seth Castle was the guest speaker. Seth is a Fort Hays State University professor for leadership studies and is an Army veteran. The color guard presented information to the students regarding why and how the American flag is folded the way it is. 3 city commissioners joined the celebration as well, including Sean Musil, Sandy Jacobs, and Henry Schwaller. Thank you to everyone who contributed in making this year's Citizenship Day such a success. Then we have Hayes High Science Olympians. They qualified for state, which is really quite exciting. They placing second at their regional finals, and the team is going to compete in state competition in April.
Very good. Anything else for John? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the financial report. Tracy?
We do not have any new exceptions for the month of January. I just did want to point out that we still are about in the same position as we were in December, right about 10% under budget. We did receive our large county payment in capital outlay, so the revenue side of that is looking better. We are still $2 million under our expenditures in capital outlay. But the main thing I would like to talk about is on page 49 of your agenda. We did have our KSDE audit completed, and so I just wanted to show you the results of that. The top part of this form goes over the student head count and FTE, and as compared to the SO66 that we report into the state. And so we were just about 12 students off as compared to that. That does not affect our funding. Below, the section below there is where actually our funding comes in. And our total enrollment of 2,986 did not change. I think that was off the 3-year average, I believe. And then it goes into all the different special weightings for our CTE contact hours. We were off 0.7 students. Bilingual, they did not have completed yet. We are still waiting on that audit from the auditor. And then it shows just each of the different categories, our at-risk, head count, transportation, and at the bottom, overall, we were off 13.6 students, which is really good in my opinion. Just hard to guess and make accurate estimates when we're doing that. So we were very pleased with that. The virtual part is a little bit funded a little bit differently, so I did want to explain that. We had budgeted $215,000 is what we actually anticipated. If you recall, we always submit to the state higher numbers to make sure that if we do receive the FTE or hit the amount of virtual classes, anything like that, that we do have that funding available. So we always overestimate to the state. We actually budgeted $215,000, and after the audit, we received just shy of $240,000. So we actually received more money in virtual than what we had truly anticipated. So it was a very good audit. Like I said, we're still waiting on the bilingual to get that back, to finalize it. But was there anything else that you wanted to add, John?
No, you said it, but I want to repeat it, just so that everybody's clear. There are parts of the budget that you want to over-guess on. You under-guess, and you're not going to get any money if your numbers are higher. So, just so everybody understands, you want it to be that way. You never want to, you can guess high, and you're better off that way. So, when she's saying 13, and that seems, oh, you missed it by quite a bit, that's good. We do not want to be the other side of it, because then you just can't access the money at all at that point.
Very good.
All I had was if there's any questions.
Very good. Thanks, Tracy. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, to include the approval of the board meeting minutes for February 12, 2018, approval of bills in the amount of $2,591,239.31, personnel transactions, financial reports to include the clerk's report, investment report, approval of early childhood connections policies, procedures, and data plan, approval of early childhood connection director report for February 26, 2018, and the Early Childhood Connections Policy Council minutes for January 29th, 2018. And then I'd also like to point out in the personnel transactions, we have 2 staff members that will be retiring this year, a total of 56 years between the two of them. Elaine Roletter, the principal at Lincoln for 24 years, and Brenda Hinton at Lincoln, an elementary teacher there, for 32 years of service. So thank you both for all the service that you did with the district. So.
Move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Very good. Been moved by Board Member Adams. Seconded by Board Member Schwartz. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Next item on the agenda, moving on to old business, is the Hilton Construction Project Tax Increment Financing. I think Jacob Wood is here to address some questions.
Hi, Board. I'm Jacob Wood, Assistant City Manager. I was going to have a long presentation, but I think Representative Phelps took most of my time, so I just stand for any questions that you have. I presented this a couple of weeks ago, so if you have anything for me, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I have one question. I'm just curious what the benefit to USD 49 is of the project. Because, I mean, the city gets sales tax revenue that'll be generated off this project. The county likewise gets the same, but the school district gets nothing.
Well, actually, the school district will gain more in property taxes than either the city or the county. So the school will retain the 20 mills in property tax for general, and then also the capital outlay. So that's about, we calculated that out to be about $15,000 a year in property taxes the school would benefit from this project. So while the county's not going to benefit anything for a long period of time, I mean, in 20 years, the property will go back on the tax rolls. And the same thing for the city as far as property taxes. The school will actually immediately benefit
Those
from those.
20 mills go to the state, right?
I'm not an expert on school
20 mills
finance.
go to the state, and our budget's based on enrollment, so, I mean, the state will benefit from it based on the school tax, but the district doesn't get, I mean,
The 8 mills capital outlay, does that go to the,
Well, that directly does come to us.
so then it's 8 mills capital outlay. I don't know anything about school finance, to
so
be honest
we
with
still
you.
get our capital outlay, what don't we get then? 'Cause
You would-
I thought that was what we were told the last time, is that we didn't get
Well,
the.
we won't be getting, the benefits for the school district still are going to be 20 years from now. I mean, that, we would have more money at that time, but we end up getting still some benefits through those 20 years. I mean, there is.
That's my question.
Right, it's the special taxes on top. So there's 8 mills right now for capital improvement, and then there's a small mill for, that's offset the, right. It's those sorts of things. If there was a bond issue, say, that came on during this time period, that would not be included in this either.
It doesn't have the significance of comparing it to 20 years down the road. But part of that conversation ends up being, but we wouldn't be in place to even get that 20 years from now if it wasn't happening now anyway.
Right, if the project doesn't happen, there's no property taxes 20 years from now, I guess is the answer.
So is it safe to say we're effectively neutral in this?
Absolutely, and you actually will continue to collect whatever property taxes you're collecting today. So it's really just the increment. So as the property becomes more valuable, that value is where the change is. So you will collect whatever you're collecting in property tax on this property today, you will continue to collect that throughout the period of the TIF district.
So the deferred benefit to the district will occur in 20 years?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah. But as long as we're viewed as neutral, then
But the value will be at the value then, not the value when it's built, right? I mean,
That's
you'll be able
correct.
to depreciate it and drop the value by that point.
I mean, the other benefit of this is it's opening up an area for new development that may happen. So we're going to have a street extended there, which will open up new lots across and around in that whole area. So we may see additional development there that we don't have right now because there's new infrastructure in place.
What's the city's policy on granting TIFs? And, I mean, because it seems like depending on who shows up, it's a different standard. And I'm just curious from a long-range plan, because if these are going to continue to come before us, I just want to know what the city's position is.
We have a very specific policy on tax increment financing, and actually tax increment financing is only available in a few areas of town. So there's certain districts, and I don't have the map in front of me, obviously, where that can happen. But if somebody comes in and they request incentives that are available through our economic development policy, we will look at those projects on a case-by-case basis. They provide a cost-benefit analysis to us, and if we feel like it's something that would be beneficial for us and the community long-term, then, I would anticipate they will approve future incentives. But it's a case-by-case basis. It's not something that I can give you,
It's more of a subjective standard then versus something that here it is, you meet these standards, you qualify.
Well, it has to cost out, so it doesn't make, if it's not going to benefit the city long-term, if we're not going to see added revenue at some point, then we're not going to do it. So it can't just be something that's going to be a loss leader for everybody, or we wouldn't approve that.
You said the economic way of employment, 70 to 80 employees?
80 to 90 employees is what we expect.
80 to 90 employees. And is that, what's our unemployment rate?
Well, right now, I believe we're around 2.1%.
And so that means this could generate some additional population?
Yeah, we would hope that it would bring additional people in, for sure.
Those are, there are only 20 or 30 of those are full-time, right?
I don't have the number of full-time
I think that's
positions.
what they said.
Aaron, do you have the number? I mean, Aaron White from the Economic Development Coalition is here as well. I don't have the numbers of exactly how many employees are going to be full-time right in front of me. I can surely provide that to you if you'd like it.
I'm really just curious what other benefits to the community, because if we do see some new...
Sure, and part of this, and part of the reason that we're interested in this, is it has a convention facility that's attached to it, which is something that we don't have in the community right now. So we're hoping that it would bring in additional travelers. Transient guest tax would increase across the board and be beneficial to city sales tax. All of those things are important to the city. So we feel like with the cost and the benefit that this weighs out, and it's a good project for us, or we wouldn't have recommended it to the city commission, and the city commission wouldn't have approved it. So at this point, we feel like it's a good project across the board, and it's going to benefit the community.
This may seem like a strange question, but it just concerned whether there's 80 or 90 full-time employment or 20 to 30 that are full-time. Are these, do you see the capacity being supported within the county? Are these going to bring new people, new families in? Because as they come in, that affects if they bring children, family.
Yeah, I mean, that's really difficult to say. I think that's going to depend on the type of position. I think for sure that they'll probably bring in the management type, the upper level people will probably come in from outside the community, but it's really hard to tell where they're going to hire people from. I mean, I think, it's just really hard to tell. I can't tell you whether they're going to bring them in or not. I think the management level, though, typically with a project like this, Hilton is going to bring in their managers that would be from somewhere else.
I just had a quick question, I guess, just because I know there has been, with convention centers in general, there's been a lot of work in this community in years past as far as what changed as far as on this. I'm just curious as far as, because I know before numerous city commissioners and everybody was against it.
Right. Well, in the past, all of the convention projects that have come forward had the city being a part owner or having a lot more skin in the game. So here, we are providing an incentive for that, and that's transient guest tax on site will go back to that property. So convention centers don't typically make money on their own. They have to be subsidized. Actually, everywhere across the state, they're subsidized by local governments or whoever. So in order to minimize the amount of subsidy, we didn't want to be a part owner and have that long-term liability. But if we're just giving back the property tax or the transient guest tax on site to that property to make sure that it's maintained and it's operated, it's really kind of a win-win for us.
So you're effectively putting the risk back on the owner?
Absolutely. And Aaron?
I'd add a few things. Aaron White, the Ellis County Coalition for Economic Development. The State Travel Agency, or the State Travel Board, averages one convention stay, attendees spend on the average of $190 a night per attendee within the community they're staying. This is wrapped up into their their registration fee, which then pays for the food and lodging and the materials that are spent to host the conference. Retail shopping that's done in the community, purchase of gas, purchase of meals, all the expenditures that filter out through the community generate sales tax across the board and also help support jobs and positions for businesses that exist in the community. So there's a fair amount of money that, although the convention center itself is not making it, it's spread load across the community, and that's the standard numbers that the Travel and Industry Tourism Board at the state level use to talk about community impacts. As far as the job hiring, you're really talking about 4 or 5, maybe 6 positions that will likely be recruited in. The rest are intended to become from the community or from the surrounding communities. They're paying a high enough wage that businesses or folks that are living in Victoria, living in Ellis, living in some of the smaller surrounding communities can easily commute in. They do a lot of flex schedule type of work, so folks who are working parents, parents with stay-at-home kids can find opportunities to work within their flex schedule during the time period their children are at school. So it provides some hiring schedules and the things that you don't see from typical employers. So they do provide some advantages to certain types of and certain demographics of our employment base.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Just a point of order, Mr. President. So, because our only action is really to say, no, this is just an information session, or do we have to take some action at this point?
I think it was just information.
All right.
I mean, if we can, if somebody wants to, but
The
I think it's just
only
information.
action I understand that you would take is to, in a negative response.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure.
I kind of want some of that sales tax for us.
Yeah, it was nice.
Maybe people like Hayes so much they'll move here.
Very good. Moving on to the next item, which is the long-range facilities planning. I think this is just to finalize the date.
Yeah, I just was very pleased. I actually surprised that all 7 board members could meet. So it does look at this time that next Monday will work. So March 5th, we're planning on a 2-hour special board meeting to then talk about the long-range facility planning. We'd start at 6:30.
Oh, wait, next Monday?
I think, I think you said you could.
No, when you said 2 hours, just when you said March 5th, it took me, it's next week.
Yeah, that's next Monday.
Very good. Moving on to the next item, which is the Hayes High School parking lot concrete bid. I think Rusty is here to go over that.
He is.
Should have the bid sheet before you. We are actually, before I get started, make you aware, we're letting 3 bids out. High school parking lot, lighting for Roosevelt, and then also looking at roofs out of next year's budget for the middle school. So over the next few board meetings, you're going to see me here presenting on that. Concrete bid, same bid that I've been letting out for the last however many years. At the high school, you should have the amounts in front of you recommending Brian's Concrete. They were low bidder, and we're going to do a little bit more than what we did last year, simply because I'm looking at not doing roofs this year, taking it out of next year's budgets. Questions?
Yeah, so how close does that get to finishing the parking lot?
It's a long ways from finishing the parking lot.
Well, I will say, driving out there as a parent is nice. I can tell the change.
Yeah.
Yeah, the old-
We're gonna go to the north to the curb, so the front section will be one more pour that size away from being done. And I figured out there was probably about 4 more pours on the back half of that, and then I can move to the teacher's parking lot, faculty parking lot.
Okay.
So
What's the lifetime of that parking lot as you put in with the new concrete?
I'd say 25 to 30 years is probably about where we're going to be turning around on it and looking at replacing sections again. So at the rate I'm going, by the time I get done with the parking lots in the district, we'll be turning around, just starting right back over. So, just to give you a heads up.
So this is a 100-year project.
It's an ongoing project. At the rate that the amount that we can spend each year to do it, for the first year I was here, I had worked all that out and had it on a spreadsheet and brought it into the board, and it was basically, by the time I got it completed, we were going to turn right back around and start over, so.
And it does make a difference, though.
Yeah, it is. There's,
All my kids' vehicles beat up, so at this point, it's too late.
anything else?
Is this the original parking lot, like that we're replacing?
There's original parking lot there, and then there was, with the additions, there was adds to it. Depending on the south end would be where the addition to it is. We've had a lot of damage to the south end of it. We keep crack sealing it and stuff, but yeah, we're pretty much replacing what was there.
Good. Any other questions? Okay. Moving on to the next item, which is the Early Childhood Connections Grant Review. I believe Donna is here to go over that for us.
Hello, good evening. Before I get started, I did just want to tell you why Lori was here. She was actually the driving force behind Ellis County getting the Dolly Parton Imagination Library before the Hanson Foundation picked it up. We've had it for several years. And she came to me and said, I want to do this, and I want to help, and I want to get this started. And she was the driving force to get that started here in the community. So I didn't know how many of you knew that, so I wanted to share that before I got up here. I have 2 grants in your packets tonight. They're both from the Kansas Early Head Start grants. One of them is Kansas Early Head Start Child Care Grant. Currently, we are, I'm looking at trying to increase that grant by 9 slots. I'm requesting, the new grant proposals came out so we could rewrite it how we would like. So I'm requesting $403,044. 10 of those slots will be out at Munger. Currently, we have 4 slots out there that are funded this way, so I'm going to be adding 6. We're looking at adding a classroom that will be primarily targeted towards infants and young toddlers up to 18 months. This is an area of need in the community where there's not enough childcare available for this age group. And then we're looking at 14 slots with partnering childcare. Currently, we have 11, so we're going to increase that by 3. And then the second grant is the Kansas Early Head Start Home Visitation Grant. Currently, we have 50 slots, but we've had difficulty keeping that grant full for our home visitation. We had written it for less originally, and they asked us to increase it. but I think that it's just more than what the community can manage. So we're looking at just switching that and decreasing that by 9, so we would continue to serve the same number of children. So in that grant is for $406,804. So those are 2 grants that I need approved this evening. I did just want to kind of talk a little bit about the federal Early Head Start grant. I'll be presenting to you at the March 26th meeting. Currently, because funding is still under continuing resolution, that grant is flat funded at this point. So we're working on that with no planned changes for that grant at this time. I also wanted to bring to your attention that next week we will be going through our federal review. They come every 3 to 5 years, depending on what the regulations are at the time. So we are having an opening meeting where I'm just reviewing how our program's set up on Monday, March 5th at 8:30 to 10. I know I've talked to Dr. Adams, and he's going to be able to attend, but if any of you could attend also, that would be great. They're just coming out, and I'll give an overview, but then there'll be an informal discussion about the program with board members, policy council members, and community partners. So that is, any questions?
The time again on that meeting?
8:30 in the morning. Washington, yes, in the gymnasium. I know, I said, it sounds like your March 5th is going to be a busy day. Any questions about the grants? Okay.
The only thing I'll add is that I was visiting another district that will remain nameless today, and I said, "Oh, I'm missing your lunch," which I apologize for asking that. They said, "Oh, she done such a great ship." So another district in the state that will remain nameless really likes the operation going on here at Hayes.
Thank you, thank you.
And I really was somewhere else.
I know you were. You did.
They served me lunch there.
Thank you very much.
I do need action on the 2 grants.
Oh, okay.
Yes, on the Kansas Early Head Start Child Care Grant and the Kansas Early Head Start Home Visitation Grant.
Do those need to be 2 separate motions?
Do you have to submit this with the grant, the board minutes approving it?
I would think you could approve them as one.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, they're both going to Department of Children and Families.
And I'll move that we approve the 2 grants presented in the agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved by Board Member Adams and seconded by Board Member Young. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the administrative handbook.
I'll just touch on the few changes that we have. Previously, we had brought the classified handbook to you for your approval, and at that time, we said that the principals and administration did want to review the administrator handbook thoroughly before it was brought to you, so that has happened. We've received input from them and made those changes. So a little bit of changes to the table of contents. Most of this is very similar to the classified handbook. We went through and just reviewed if there needed to be title changes, things like that. There's a summary here, and then the full red line version is following that. But an example is Capers still had the 4%, which is now 6%. So we just changed the wording to face what we're really doing and to follow those areas. So the personal leave on page 14, we did add in the same situation, the same wordage that was negotiated with the teachers and is in the classified handbook. Under the purchasing procedures, we made some slight changes to account for the credit cards that we now use and just again make sure that it was following exactly what we were doing. We added First Care Clinic as one of our work comp clinics that we're able to go to. We added key cards in addition to keys, since most of our schools are going to the key cards and we're using those for our entrances. And I believe all the rest were simple wordage changes. We took out Facebook instant messenger and just changed it to a general social networking website. So those are for your review, and then we'll ask for your approval at the next meeting.
Very good. Any questions for Tracy? Moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the administrative contract renewals.
Has very much the similar purpose as when we talked about a couple meetings back, the renewal of district personnel. In this particular case, this would be the other administrators within the district.
And do
The
we need
next meeting would be a matter.
So I was just going to check. Okay. Any questions on the renewals? Okay. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent evaluation.
The tool changed this year at the first semester. I would suspect you'd use the same tool again this time around. I would say it's more a matter of just starting the process. I don't know if there's any...
Sarah, I would assume we could send something out on that, and this time we'll put names.
That's okay.
What's that?
If that's okay with you.
Yes.
No, I'd like to see you try and track it down again.
Very good. Any other questions on that? Okay. Moving on to the next item, which is discussion by board members and agenda requests.
I did forget to mention, Lance, that earlier there was the planning, and I think it'd be very appropriate this time to have another meeting, whether it's in March or April, to go in some more detail about our crisis plan, as far as the information and what's been done. I hinted to some of those items quickly, but I also know that information that came back from that training that we ended up sending an individual to, we want to have that shared with the Board of Education as well.
Very good. Any other discussion or agenda requests? And I believe we do need an exec session tonight, John, a short one for the...
Yes, we need it for the
second one.
Property, the second one.
So I'll move that the Board of Education...
And if Tracy, myself, and Robert Riedel could be invited as well. And, I'm sorry, our legal advisor.
So I'll move that the Board of Education recess into executive session along with the John, Tracy, Robert Riedel, and the board attorney to discuss preliminary discussions relating to acquisition of real property, KSA 754319B6, with the open session to resume in this room at, how long would you say?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay. A second?
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 7-0.